Okay, we begin today the Gemara on Daf Kuf Lamed Vav, the Mishnah. Zok Eilige Mishnah, Kaisev Nechasav Labanov. A person writes when he's alive. Here we're not talking about a shchiv mirah, a dying person, as the Mishnah before was talking. Here we're talking about a person that's a healthy person, and he writes, he wants to give away all his properties to his sons. Why is this? So the Rashbam explains, for example, a person is getting married to a second wife, and he wants his children from the first wife to inherit his properties. If he's not going to give them away, his properties now, then what happens if he dies? And then his wife is going to take all those properties for the payment of the ksuba. So he wants to give away all the properties to his sons. But on the other hand, though, he still wants to be able to use those properties for himself until he dies. So in such a case, what does he do? So what he writes to his children is, that I'm giving it from today and when I pass away. What does that term mean? Means I'm selling them, or I'm giving them as a gift the guf, the body of the property itself is theirs from today. But the usage of it, which is the paytis, they can't use until after I pass away. So as long as he's alive, he's retaining the ownership of the paytis. That's how he has to write it, and therefore it works out. He can use it until he passes away, and then when he passes away, it'll go to his children and not to his second wife. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, this is Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rabbi Yossi says, Ein tzarich. It's not necessary to write these details. Even without writing it, the king will take effect in this way. And the Gemara will explain why that is, according to Rabbi Yossi, why you don't have to write this. Okay, so now the Gemara says, Mishnah that is, says another halacha based on this first halacha of the Mishnah, Hakaisev nechasav levnoi or levanov, a person that's writing his properties away to his children in this kind of manner, where he's keeping the paytis for himself and the guf of the properties for his children, so that the children will only get the paytis after he passes away. So now the father can't fully sell the property, meaning the body of the property itself and the paytis, because the body of the property itself he already sold to his children from today. And on the other hand, the son can't sell the entirety of the property, the guf of the property and the paytis, because as long as the father is still alive, the father kept for himself. The paytis is his. The usage of the property is his. Right? So if the father and the son together will both sell to someone, then it'll be the sale will take effect. But each one separately cannot sell the full property and the paytis. So what's if the father went himself and sold the property to someone? Then what could he sell? He could only sell the paytis, the usage of the property, until he passes away. But when he passes away, then it goes to his son, because he gave the guf of the property to his son, and that when he passes away, the son gets the paytis as well. If the son sold, when the father is still alive, the son sells this property to someone, so then ein lekech ben klum. The buyer gets nothing from the property, meaning he can't use any of the paytis of the property until the father dies, because as long as the father is alive, the father is the one that still owns the paytis. And then when the father dies, now the paytis as well, it belongs to the son. So now the sale will take effect and the buyer gets the property and the paytis. Okay, that's the Mishnah. So now the Gemara is going to start with the terminology that Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, that it's written in the shtar here. You write Mahayim ula'acha miseh, which the Mishnah said would mean that I'm selling the body of the property itself to my children today. I'm giving that is to them today, but I'm keeping the paytis, the usage of it, until I pass away. That's what that term means. So the Gemara asks, V'chikas of Mahayim ula'acha miseh, a person that writes this terminology, that he's writing Mahayim today, and when I pass away, my hava. How does that work? Why would we interpret it to mean, as we explained, that one is the guf, that guf is being sold today, and the paytis after he passes away? Hatnan, but we learned in the Mishnah in Gittin, that regarding a get, if a person writes to his wife in a get, mehayoim ula'acha miseh, that you're divorced from today and after I pass away. So what does this term mean? So over there the Mishnah says, get, ve'ein a get, that it's actually going to be a suffix if this is a get. Why is it a suffix if this is a get? Because on one hand he's writing the get should take effect today, so then it is the get. On the other hand, he's writing that the get should take effect ula'acha miseh. That sounds like it's only taking effect after he passes away. After he passes away, he can't divorce his wife.
No,
so because he wrote
it's automatic divorce. Death is always automatic divorce.
It's not divorced, it becomes an almana. It's different if you're an almana or if you're a grusha. So after he passes away, it can't take effect. So in such a case, it's a suffix if it's a get. So he would have to give her another get. And v'im meis, if he dies, then cheletzes, v'loy misya bemes. If she was divorced, then you wouldn't need any yibum at all. But because it's a suffix if it's a get or not, so it's a suffix if she's an almana, if she's a widow, or she was divorced, so then you would still have to do chalitza. She's not going to just be mutter to marry anybody if her husband had no children. You'll have to do chalitza, but v'loy misya bemes, you can't do yibum because maybe it was a get. So you clearly see here that this term of ma'ayim ulacha miseh, it's a suffix. It's two contradictory terms. And says the Gemara, true, but it's taka different than our Mishnah. Hasam over there misapgalon, because there's taka a suffix about this. When you write these two terms in a get, how do we understand this? Do I say itno have? Do I consider the fact that he wrote la'acha misa just to be a condition? In other words, what the person is writing is that the get should take place today. If I die, then the get should be retroactively a get from today. So it's just a condition. The death is not when the get is taking effect. It's taking effect from now, but the death is just a condition. Or the fact that he wrote la'acha misa, maybe the person is retracting. First he wrote today, and then afterwards he says, no, the get is taking place only after he dies. So then it can't take effect after he dies. That's there. But over here, when it comes to a property that a person is giving as a gift, there's no reason to have this kind of a doubt. Over here, it's just very simple to explain why he's writing this. This is what he's saying to his children. Gufa kanima yaim, that the body of the property you acquire, I'm giving you as a gift from today, and paid misa, but the usage of it, the fruits, you get after I pass away. So here, since there's a way how to interpret these two terminologies without having any contradiction, so that's how we understand it. That's this lashon that Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah. So the Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah? Rabbi Yossi Aimeh, Ein Tzarich. Rabbi Yossi says you don't even have to write, you don't have to clarify and write Ma'alacha Misa, it will be understood without that. So the Gemara, to explain what Rabbi Yossi said, the Gemara says as follows. Rabbi Baravua Cholash, Rabbi Baravua was not well. All Gabei, Rav Huna v'Rav Nachman. Rav Huna Rav Nachman went up to visit him, B'Kecholim. Amalei Rav Huna Rav Nachman, so Rav Huna tells Rav Nachman, Boye Minei, ask of Rabbi Baravua, halacha ka Rabbi Yossi? Oi, en halacha ka Rabbi Yossi. Do we paskin like Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah that you don't have to write this terminology of mahayim or la'acha misa? Or we don't paskin like Rabbi Yossi? Omalei, so Rav Nachman says to Rav Huna, Taime de Rabbi Yossi lo yadaina. I don't even understand what the logic of Rabbi Yossi's opinion is. Why would you not have to write this clearly that it should be understood that the kinyan is starting from today? If you're going to write in a shtar that you're giving it la'acha misa, why do you not have to add and say, like Rabbi Yehuda said, Mei Hayayim, that the kinyan is starting from today? So I don't understand what Rabbi Yossi was saying. Halachi b'aymenei. So I should ask him whether we even paskin like Rabbi Yossi, if I don't even understand the reason of Rabbi Yossi's opinion. Amalei, so Rav Huna says to Rav Nachman, Ad b'aymenei I halacha iloi. You, Rav Nachman, you ask of Rabbi Baravua whether we paskin like Rabbi Yossi or not. The taimei, the reasoning behind Rabbi Yossi's opinion, anah min halach. Afterwards, I'll explain you the reasoning of Rabbi Yossi's opinion. So Boy Minei, he asked from Rabbi Baravuna whether we paskin like Rabbi Yossi or not. Amalei, and Rabbi Baravuna said, Hachi Omar Rav. This is what Rav said, Halacha ke Rabbi Yossi. That yes, we do paskin like Rabbi Yossi. Chlal, the Gemara always says that we always paskin like Rabbi Yossi because Rabbi Yossi taimei v'nemuka yimei. Whatever he said, he always had a good reasoning behind his opinion. Now, Basa de Nafku, after they came out from Rabbi Baravuna, so Amalei, so now Rav Huna explained to Rav Nachman, Hainu Taimei de Rabbi Yossi. This is the reason why Rabbi Yossi says that if a father wants to give away to his children the properties, he writes that he's giving it away to them, they could only use it after they pass away. He says he writes Lacha Misa, and he doesn't have to clarify that the kinyan is starting from today and that he's using the paytas today. That he doesn't have to clarify that. Why not? Because the Rabbi Yossi's opinion is, we say like this, Zmanoi shel shtar mechiach cholov. The date that you write into the shtar in itself is proof for the fact that the kinyan begins today. Even if you write in the shtar la'acha misa, and so seemingly you can't give away anything after you're dead, but because he wrote in the shtar the date, Shpam here brings, for example, the lashon that you write inside the shtar is, lashon that you write is mahayim. Second, where is it over here? Zmanish shtar. He writes bekach v'kach b'Shabbos amalonu ploini hevu alay edim v'konu mimenu. You write so and this date of the week of the month. so-and-so said that we should be Eidim, that he's giving away this property to his children after he passes away. So if he's writing after he passes away, it's anyways taking effect after he passes away. So then what's the point of writing today, the date? Elamai, he's writing the date, that it should be clear that the kinyan starts from today. And that it'll only then take effect, that the children will get to pay this, the usage of it, after he passes away. So the date itself proves it, that the kinyan starts from today. Tani Nami Yachid, we learned this in a Braisa as well. Rabbi Yossi clearly himself said this, Ein Tzarech, it's not necessary to write, to clarify Mei Hayoim, that it starts from today. Because the date in the star in itself is the proof that the kinyan starts from today.
So he doesn't write Mayom, so what does he write?
He writes that La'acham that they acquire it for my son after he passes away. But I still say though that his kavanah is that the guf of the kinyan, the guf of the karka is giving them today without writing clearly mehayim alacham
But
isa.
he doesn't have to write a date. In such a star, there's no need
Right,
of a date.
correct, right. If he doesn't want it to take effect today, he only wants to take effect later. Yeah, so therefore it's mechiach.
He's writing a date.
Yeah. Rav Nachman, Rav asked the Shaila now from Rav Nachman, Ba'kno mahu. What's the halacha by a hakno? Meaning, what's if you have a star where it's written in the star that we made a kinyan, that the father's saying, I had the Eidim here that are signing this star, and they made a kinyan for my children, for this karka, that it should be theirs after I pass away. So it says in the star that there was a kinyan made. So the shaila over here is, in such a case, according to Rav Yehuda, that we said in the Mishnah, says that you do have to usually write clearly, Mei Hayem, that I'm giving it to them as a gift from today. What's in a case where it was written in it, Bahakno, that in the star it's written that there was a kinyan made from before? What's the halach in such a case? Do you have to write Mei Hayem, or because maybe you could still say that the kinyan was that a kinyan for after he passes away, and therefore it's still not going to work. Because the whole kinyan is for later. It's a kinyan made today that they should only be kinyan later, so it's still not going to work. Or no, because you're writing in the shtar that there's a kinyan being made here, so that itself makes it clear that you want the kinyan to take effect today, and you do not have to write mahayim. Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, Ba'kno ein tzarech. If you write in the shtar hakno that there's a kinyan being made here, so then it's clear that the point of the kinyan being made is that the kinyan should start from today. It's not necessary to write mahayim, even according to Rav Yehuda. Rav Papi says, it depends how it was written in the shtar that there's a kinyan that was made here. So here, what the Gemara is going to say, as the Rashbam brings, is based on the fact that when you write a shtar, you usually write in the shtar what it is that's happening, and then there's what's called the shitta achroina of the shtar. In the last line of the shtar, you usually repeat again, bekitzer, the point of what's written before in the shtar. Right, so therefore, Rav Papi says, Ike aknaise, the tzarech, there is a case when it's written in the shtar that there's a kinyan being made, that you'll still have to clarify and write mei hayom, that you want it to be, the kinyan should be from today. Ve'eka knaise the loy tzarech. And there is a case where when you write the term of a kinyan in a shtar, that you're not going to have to write mei hayom. You're not going to have to write that the kinyan is, that it should take effect from today. What is the difference? So he says, aknei, if in the beginning of the shtar it was written that the Eidim that are signing the shtar, they're writing that so and so told us that we should go ahead and make a kinyan. That was the first term that was written, akne, meaning that the lashon of akne is that he told us to go ahead and make this kinyan. And then, in the last line of the shtar, where you repeat again what it says before, it said again, v'kanina minei, and we made this kinyan. So over here, loy tzarech. When it's written in such a way, you're not going to have to write me'ayim that the kinyan is for that it should take effect today, because it's self-understood. Basically, the point here is, why are you repeating again? Once it said at the beginning, Akne, that he told us, the Edom are signing the shtar and saying that he told us to make a kinyan for his children. So then it's understood that they made this kinyan for their children. When you repeat again in the end of the shtar, Vikanina, and we made this kinyan, so then it's a repetition. The reason why they're writing that again is to make it clear that the kinyan is to take effect today. So you don't have to write the word Mahayim. However, if what was written in the shtar is different. In the beginning of the shtar, it said, Kanina minei. The Edom start writing, we went and made a kinyan on these properties. We made a kinyan. And it doesn't say that the owner of the property told them to make a kinyan. They just wrote in the beginning of the shtar, kanina, we made a kinyan. And then at the end, in the last line of the shtar, repeated again, and it said, va'akne, he told us to make a kinyan. So then, in such a case, tzarech, you're going to have to write mehayim. Why? Even though the shtar already says that they made a kinyan, and it says twice in the shtar, there's a repetition here, but it's not considered to be a repetition. Because when it said in the beginning of the shtar, kanina, we made a kinyan, So they're not saying that they were given permission, that they were told to make this kinyan. So therefore it has to write in the end again, akne, that he told us to make the kinyan in order to clarify that the kinyan that we made was because the owner, the father, told us to make this kinyan. So because it's not a repetition, so therefore it's still not clear enough that he wants the kinyan to take effect today. Mashenkin in the previous lashon, it's considered to be a repetition, so therefore we say that the repetition is to make it clear that the kinyan should take effect today. That's the difference. A small difference in the language of the shtar will determine whether you have to add that word ayem or not. So this the Gemara asks, Maskeflot of Chanina Misura. Chanina asks from Surah, this little subtle difference is mamish something that people pay attention to? Could you say that based on this we can see if the kinyan is from today or not? Mi ikemidi, is there something that nan lo yadinon? We don't even necessarily know to decipher the difference between these two terminologies, whether you wrote akne first or you wrote it later. The safri yadi, and you're going to say that the scribes, when they wrote the shtar, they understand and they know that there's a difference if you're writing first akne or you're writing Latin and second akne, and they're going to understand whether what the writing means, that the kinyan is taking effect today or not. So the Gemara says, Shalunu l'safri da Abaya. So they went and they asked those scribes by the Bezdin of Abaya that write a shtar, they asked them, do you understand the difference whether you write akne first or not? And the Yadi, they knew to explain it. Yeah, there is a difference if you're writing these two terminologies. Or the Safri de Rava, they asked the scribes by Rava as well. The Yadi, they also knew to explain the difference between these two terminologies. So that means when the scribes that are writing the shtar, they were proficient in this. They understood that there's a difference in these two terminologies, like Rav Papi said. Now, Rav Huna Bereder Rav Yeshua says basically like the opinion of Rav Nachman that was brought before, that these terminologies doesn't make a difference. Bein akne v'kanina mine, whether the term akne was used first and the term kanina was used second in the shtar. Bein kanina mine v'akne, whether the term kanina was used first and then akne. Lo yitzarech, either way, once it's written in the shtar that a kinyan is being made, it's not necessary to add mehayoyim, that the point is that it should take effect from today. So just like Rav Nachman. But when do you have to write that it's mehayim? Ubeduchrin pizgamet ahava ban pana pligi. If you have a shtar, and in the shtar it's written that we're writing the point that this person told us. This person told us that he wants his properties should go to his children after he passes away. But it didn't say that there's a kinyan here that's being made. Then that's pligi. That's when there's the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi, whether you have to write mehayim or you could just rely on the date, whether that's good enough.
But isn't that automatic? If the witnesses are there, they're saying on this and this and day, the so and so witnesses are witness to the fact that this kinyan is being made. That is hayoim.
Yeah, but the kinyan could still be. There's still room to say that the kinyan is being made for the purpose that the children should acquire it after he passes away, even if there's a kinyan, even if it's written a kinyan. Omar Rav Kahane says, Amrita l'shmaita kamed Rav Zvid, I said over this machlokes or this sugya in front of Rav Zvid, min Nerdav, from Nerdav, v'amali, and he said to me, Aton hachem asnitin lo. You brought before that this was an ibaya. Going back before, Rava asked this shaila from Rav Nachman. Anan hachem asnitin lo. We learned this as follows. Rava never asked from Rav Nachman an ibaya. Rather, Omar Rava, Omar Rav Nachman. We just learned this that Rava said in the name of Rav Nachman, B'hakna, when you have a shtar that a person is writing that he's giving his children his properties after he passes away, but it's written in the shtar that there's a kinyan being made, ain't it tzarech. It's not necessary to write mehayim. Whether the term that's written in the shtar is first the word akne and then later kanina mine, ben kanina mine v'akne, whether the term is the opposite. Lo yitzarech, either way, you don't have to write the term hayom in the shtar. Now, beduchrin pizgamet ahava ba'am pana. If all that's being written in the shtar is that this is to write down the points that was spoken in front of us, that the person wants to give the properties away to his children, and it doesn't say the term kinyan in the shtar, pligi, only then is there the machlokes of Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi in our Mishnah. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the second part of the Mishnah where it said that Kaisev nechasav levnoi or levanav la'acha misa, a person that writes that he's giving away his properties to his children and he's keeping the paytas for himself until he dies, and then the children get the guf he's giving to his children now, and then after he passes away, then the children get everything. So what did it say in our Mishnah? Not the father, not the son could sell the entire property because the father has the paytas and the children have the guf of the property. Okay, but then the Mishnah said if the father sold, then the buyer can keep the paytis until he passes away. If the children sold, then the buyer will only get it after the father passed away. So here the Gemara brings a machlokes. Itmar, we learned machlokes in the following case. Machar haben b'chaye ha'av. What's if the son, like the case of the Mishnah, son went and sold his property when the father is still alive? Okay, so now if the case would be that the father dies, so then the buyers of these children, as just mentioned, will get the property from the children that they sold to him. But now here the case though is u'meisa ben b'chaye ha'av. The son that sold passed away before the father passed away. So now the question is, the sale of this son, does that take effect at all? Rav Yechanan says, Lo yikana lekeach. In such a case, the lekeach will not acquire anything. When it said in the Mishnah said that if the son sells to someone, so then the buyer doesn't get it ad sheyomus ha'af, until the father dies. So therefore Rav Yechanan is medayik from the Mishnah. If the father dies before the son, so then the buyer will get the properties from the son that sold to him. But if the son dies before the father, in such a case, the buyer gets nothing. Okay, the Gemara will soon explain the rationale behind Rav Yechanan's opinion, but that's the diak of Rav Yechanan in our Mishnah. But Rish Lakish says that in this case as well, kana lekeach, the buyer, even though the son passed away before the father, the lekeach of the son will get the property. So the Gemara explains what's the basis of the machlokes. Rabbi Yechanan says lo yikana lekeach, that the lekeach will not acquire the property here in this case because kinyan peiris kinyan aguftami. When one has ownership of the peiris of a property, that's the main ownership here. It's like he owns the body of the property itself. When two people have an ownership in a property, in this case the father and the son, the father has the ownership of only the peiris, and the children have the ownership of the guf. But the children that have the ownership of the guf of the property, they could do nothing with it. The father that has the ownership of the peiris, he's the one that could use the property. So therefore, the one that has the kinyan peiris, he's the one that has the main kinyan. So therefore, if the son is selling the property, and then the son passes away before the father, so now the lekeach wants to come and take the property. The father that owned the peiris of the property is the one that has the main kinyan of the property. So that prevents this sale of taking effect. Because now the son died before him, so the father just actualizes his main kinyan, which is the kinyan peiris. It's like the kinyan guf, so the buyer can't get anything. Okay, so now the Rashbam explains, the Shainim here clarify this point. If the case would have been like what the Mishnah was speaking about, that the father passed away before the son, so then the sale will take effect. We just said that the kinyan of the peiris is that the father owns the peiris. That's the main acquisition. That's the main ownership of the property. Like he owns the guf itself. So then, how could the son sell it all? Why, if the father passes away before the son, could the buyer not come and take the property from the son? The father's ownership is so strong that it should prevent the son of selling it at all. So the Rashbam says no. If the father passes away first, so now the moment the father passes away, the son that had before the kinyan guf and not the peiris, but now that the father passes away, his whole entire kinyan becomes actualized. Now he's able to take from his kinyan guf the peiris as well. So now that his acquisition becomes actualized, who does it go to? It goes to his buyer that he sold it to. But if the kinyan of the son in the guf of the karka never becomes materialized because the son passed away before the father, so now the kinyan of the father, which is the kinyan peiris, is the main kinyan of the karka, and the kinyan of the son in the guf of the karka never became materialized because he passed away before the father. So then the lekeach gets nothing. So then the father's kinyan guf, the son can't sell it if his kinyan, if the son's kinyan never materialized because he passed away before the father. That's Rabbi Yechanan's opinion. Rish Lakish says kana lekeach. That no, the lekeach, even if the son passes away before the father, the lekeach will acquire this property. Why? Because kinyan peiris, the fact that when the father is still alive, he has an acquisition of the peiris, laka kinyan guftami. That's not the main kinyan of the karka. Even when the father is alive and he can use the peiris, but the son that owns the guf of the karka is the one that has the main ownership in the karka. So even if he passes away before the father, the lekeach of the son will acquire this property from the son. The son has the ability to sell it. That's the machlekes here. So the Gemara asks on this, if that's the understanding of their machlokes, vaha ifliga b'chad zimna. This argument regarding when you have a kinyan only of peiros in something, whether that's a significant kinyan, like a kinyan in the guf of the karka itself, they argued about this once before. The itmar, as we learned this machlokes, a person sells his property to someone, but he's not selling the body of the property itself. He's only selling it for the fruits. So Rabbi Yechanan says, Mevi v'kaira. So if this is in Eretz Yisrael, so there's the mitzvah of bikurim. You bring the bikurim, and you can read the psukim that have to be read. When you read the psukim, it says there as ha'adama asher nasat li Hashem. This is the earth that Hashem has given me, because Rabbi Yechanan holds. Okay, the Gemara is going to explain. Let's just see. But Reish Lakish says in such a case where you only bought the peiros and you don't own the body of the property itself, maybe v'enekaira. So even if you have to bring the bikurim, but you can't read the psukim that it says Dama asher nasati li Hashem. Okay, but you still chayiv to bring, because the Rashbam here says asher tovi me'artzacha, that you bring from your land. So the peiros, that this person now owns the peiros. The peiros take their nourishment; they grow from this ground. So therefore, you still have to bring, but you can't read the psukim. So what's this machlokes? Rabbi Yechanan says maybe v'kaira, that you can bring the bikurim and you can read the psukim. Why? Because kasavar, Rabbi Yechanan holds kinyan peiros. This buyer that bought only the peiros, kinyan aguf dami. That ownership, that level of ownership of the peiros is significant enough as if you own the guf of the karka. Since you're the only one that could use the peiros of this karka, and the one that owns the body of the karka can do nothing with it, who's the one that really owns it? You're the one that has the real ownership here. So therefore, you could say this is my adama. You have to bring the bikurim and you read the psukim. That you bring the bikurim, but you can't read the psukim. You can't say it's your adama because kinyan peiros. The fact that you own the peiros is lav kinyan aguf dami. It's not significant enough, like you own the body of the property itself. So right here we see that Rabbi Yechanan and Reish Lakish argued about this very point. So why do they have to argue and bring up the same point again here regarding the case we spoke about before, a son that's selling the properties of his father in the lifetime of the father? Okay, so the Gemara will explain that there's a distinction here. Amalach Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yechanan will tell you it's not the same kind of case. Why? Because even if another case I would say kinyan peiros, kinyan aguf dami, that the ownership of the peiros is significant enough, like you own the body of the property, and therefore by bikurim you're going to have to bring the bikurim. But nevertheless, hacha itzterich. In this case, when a father is giving his son a gift, the property, and he's giving him the body of the property in his life, and he's keeping the peiros for himself, here I have to say the chiddush that the kinyan of the peiros of the father is significant like the kinyan of the guf. Why? Because I would think to say Abba legabe brei, a father when he's giving to his son achul yachol. He's giving it to his own son. So he wants to give him away the body of the property that it's really totally the son's. He just wants to be able to live. As long as he's alive, he wants to be able to eat the peiros, to be able to feed himself. But he's really all giving it totally away to the son. So maybe in such a case, I would say that the kinyan of the peiros of the father is not a significant kinyan. He can't stop the son from selling it to anyone if the son would pass away when the father is still alive. So therefore, Kamash Malon, therefore Rabbi Yechanan had to say that even in this case, I say that the father's kinyan is a strong kinyan, he's keeping it for himself, and the son can't sell it. If the son will pass away when the father is alive, the kinyan will not take effect. On the other hand, the Gemara says, Reish Lakish says an opposite svara. Rab Shimon ben Lakish Amar, Rab Shimon ben Lakish will tell you, Afal gav de ba'alma. Even if you're going to say that in another case, when a person is selling to someone just peiros, kinyan peiros, lav kinyan aguf dami, that when you acquire just peiros, that's not a significant kinyan. You don't own the body of the karka, so you don't have to bring the bikurim and read the psukim as well. But hacha itzterich, I have to say that that's true in this case as well, because over here, I would think to say, call legabe nafshe. Over here, the person is keeping the peiros for himself. So in such a case, I would say, afilu b'makim berei, even if it's in a case where you're giving it away to your son, but nevertheless, nafshe adifale. Since you're keeping the peiros for yourself, over here, I would think that maybe the peiros that you're keeping for yourself is significant enough that you want to keep the main ownership of the karka for yourself. When Reish Lakish said that the kinyan of the peiros is not the kinyan aguf, that's when you're selling the peiros to someone else. So the buyer that's getting the peiros, so the seller is keeping the guf. He wants to keep the body of the property for himself. But maybe over here, when the father he wants to keep the peiros for himself, maybe in such a case I would say that he really means to keep a significant ownership of this property for himself. Therefore, Kamash Malon, therefore Reish Lakish had to say that even in this case, the ownership of the peiros that the father has is just peiros. it's not a significant ownership in the karka, and therefore if the son sells when the father is alive, the kinyan will take effect. Even if the son passes away, when the father is still alive, the kinyan will take effect. Okay, the Gemara is going to ask further on this, but this continues. We'll stop over here.